A glimpse beyond gowns. A simple, unassuming woman had long been the subject of quiet ridicule among Boston's most haughty socialites, a group whose snobbish whispers belied their own insecurities. They had mocked her plain tan dress as if it were a statement of poverty. Little did they know that behind her modest appearance lay a fortune 100 times greater than theirs, and an inner resolve that would soon upend their carefully constructed social hierarchy. The lavish crystal chandeliers of the Hawthorne Ballroom cast a warm, golden glow over Boston's most exclusive charity gala that evening. The expansive marble floors of the hall shimmered beneath the graceful strides of women draped in designer gowns studded with diamonds, while sharply dressed men in bespoke tuxedos exchanged polished business cards with practiced ease. The arrival of the unassuming benefactor. Disguised as casual conversation, Vivian Sterling, one of the evening's most influential hosts, adjusted her sapphire necklace, its glistening blue stones perfectly complementing her intricately embroidered gown. Beside her, Felicia Monroe smoothed down the fabric of her sleek, black designer dress, and Lillian Bradford beamed in a striking navy ensemble accented with silver. They were the embodiment of Boston's elite, draped in luxury and self-assurance. Honestly, the new hospital wing should bear the name of someone truly worthy for a change, Vivian remarked as she surveyed the grand ballroom with a critical eye. Last year's donors barely held any true stature. The other women nodded in agreement, their voices a mix of condescension and expectation. At that moment, a newcomer entered the ballroom, a woman who defied every preconception of what a charity gala guest should look like. Olivia Porter stood in the center of the entrance, dressed in a simple beige ensemble that was as unadorned as it was modest compared to the couture surrounding her. No extravagant statement jewelry, no designer clutch. Her auburn hair was styled simply, and her makeup applied sparingly. It was as if she had stepped in for a job interview rather than a $5,000 plate charity event. Olivia, at 34 years old, moved through the crowd with a quiet confidence and natural grace that needed no embellishment. Pausing in an exhibit of architectural renderings for the planned children's hospital expansion, the evening's designated cause, her eyes lingered on details that others overlooked. Unbeknownst to the glittering socialites, Olivia had spent the morning touring the current pediatric ward, learning the names of young patients, and promising a little girl with leukemia that the new wing would have windows facing a garden where butterflies gathered each spring. It was a promise she was determined to keep. Before Olivia could lose herself in the intricacies of the renderings, a cultured voice approached from beside her. "I don't believe we've met," said Vivian Sterling as she extended a graceful hand, the diamond bracelet on her wrist catching the light. "I'm Vivian Sterling, chair of the hospital board's fundraising committee." Olivia's eyes warmed, and she returned the handshake with genuine sincerity. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Vivian." Her smile was honest and unassuming, though Vivian's gaze soon drifted over Olivia's attire in search of a hidden designer label, only to find none. "And what brings you to our little gathering tonight? Are you with the hospital's medical staff?" Vivian inquired, her tone laced with faux concern. "I'm simply passionate about children's health care," Olivia replied softly, her words imbued with quiet conviction. Felicia and Lillian drifted closer, circling like elegantly dressed sharks. "We rarely see a new face at these events," Felicia commented, champagne flute in hand as her manicured fingers gracefully raised it in a toast. "The Hawthorne Ballroom is known for its exclusivity." Olivia nodded. "I was invited to speak about the pediatric oncology wing, a cause that is very dear to my heart." Lillian exchanged a knowing glance with Vivian, her eyebrows arched in subtle skepticism. "Every small contribution does add up," she mused, though she could not hide the implication that tonight's donors typically contributed 6- or 7-figure sums. Olivia smiled pleasantly. "I completely agree." Vivian's eyes narrowed ever so slightly as she observed this plain woman's confident demeanor. "Your dress, if I might ask, is it vintage?" she said, her tone dripping with contrived concern. The question hung in the air, It's true, meaning both transparent and cutting. Just simple, Olivia replied, unperturbed. I find that elaborate designs can be rather distracting. Practical, indeed, Vivian retorted, her words sounding more like an insult than a compliment. Allow me to introduce you to Clarence Ashford. He's our biggest donor from last year. He contributed $5 million toward the emergency department. He loves meeting everyday people. Olivia's eyes reflected a quiet wisdom. I'd certainly enjoy that introduction, she said, as the small group was guided across the ballroom. Vivian, however, discreetly signaled to her close circle, rolling her eyes when Olivia's back was turned. Whispers trailed in their wake. Remarks like, "Who brought the secretary?" and "That dress looks like something from a department store." Clearly, she doesn't belong here. The warmth of genuine connection. It wasn't long before Dr. Edward Miller, the hospital's chief of pediatrics, joined the group with a warm, welcoming smile. "Ladies, it's wonderful to see you all again," he said, his eyes lighting up when they landed on Olivia. "Miss Porter, I didn't realize you'd be joining us tonight." Vivian's perfectly sculpted eyebrows arched in surprise. "You two know each other?" she inquired before Olivia could offer any clarification. Dr. Miller continued with enthusiasm. "Indeed, Miss Porter visited our pediatric ward this morning. She spent hours with the children, and little Abigail hasn't stopped talking about the butterfly garden you promised her." Vivian managed a polite smile, though her eyes hinted at a tightening resolve. But before Miss Porter joins us in meeting Clarence Ashford," Dr. Miller interjected, "it might be beneficial for her to share her insights on the new wing design while we await his arrival." His tone grew slightly cooler as he added, "Miss Porter asked some remarkably insightful questions about our pediatric care protocols this morning." Vivian smoothly interjected before Dr. Miller could continue. "James, we wouldn't want to overwhelm our guest. These events can be rather intimidating for newcomers. Our donor circle operates on a different level than the average hospital visitor." "Quite so, Dr. Miller agreed. "Let's ensure our guest feels at ease." Across the room, the hospital's executive director, Victor Langford, ascended a small stage. His presence commanded attention as he addressed the room. "Ladies and gentlemen, we're just moments away from unveiling the names of our major donors for the new children's wing." The murmurs of expectation and ambition among Boston's elite filled the space as the donors' names were about to be immortalized on a donor wall. "This is our moment," Vivian whispered to her friends, a note of triumph in her voice. Olivia glanced toward the stage and then at her watch. "If you'll excuse me, I need to step away for a moment," she said quietly. "I'll be right back." "Of course," replied Vivian, barely concealing her relief. "The restrooms are down the hall to the left, though I doubt they could do much for that dress." As Olivia moved away, Lillian leaned in conspiratorially. "Goodness, Vivian, where did they find her? She looks as if she wandered in from a job fair." "The hospital is always looking for everyday heroes for their publicity," Vivian dismissed with a wave of her hand. "They need to show diversity in their donor materials. The working class make for touching brochure stories." Felicia added with a smug nod. "Did you see her expression when you mentioned Clarence's $5 million? I thought her eyes might pop out of her head." Their laughter, as delicate as the tinkling of crystal glasses, resonated in the space while they clinked their flutes together in feigned solidarity. Little did they know that the unfolding evening would dramatically alter the pecking order they held so dear. A revelation on stage. Olivia re-entered the ballroom just as Victor Langford tapped a microphone to capture everyone's attention. The crowd hushed, their glittering jewelry catching the light from the chandeliers. Boston's elite turned their gaze toward the stage, eager to absorb the moment. "Ladies and gentlemen," Victor began, his voice resonating with practiced gravitas, "tonight marks a historic chapter for Boston Children's Hospital. The new pediatric oncology wing will revolutionize the treatment of our youngest cancer patients." Vivian and her circle positioned themselves prominently at the front, champagne flutes in hand, refreshed expressions poised with expectation. This was their moment, The moment when donations were announced, names immortalized, and social hierarchies reaffirmed. Olivia stood quietly at the back, observing every detail. Before we unveil our donor wall, Victor continued, "I want to share something extraordinary." He paused, his tone shifting to one of awe. For the first time in our hospital's 150-year history, we have received an anonymous donation that has left our entire board speechless. A ripple of murmurs passed through the crowd, for while anonymous donations were not unheard of, the gravity in Victor's voice suggested that this was truly unprecedented. Vivian frowned. In her meticulous calculations of social rank, anonymous donors simply did not fit. They could not be ranked, impressed, or leveraged for future connections. This extraordinary benefactor has contributed a staggering $25 million specifically for our pediatric oncology wing, Victor announced. And this donation comes with one condition: that our new garden terrace be named Chloe's Butterfly Sanctuary, in honor of one of our young patients. At that moment, Dr. Miller's eyes widened as he scanned the room, eventually landing on Olivia. "Miss Porter," Victor continued, "we usually respect our anonymous donors' privacy, but this benefactor has granted permission to be acknowledged tonight, as they are present in this very room." A hush fell over the donor circle. Each woman in Vivian's group straightened imperceptibly, their minds racing with calculations. Could their families have quietly made such a donation without their knowledge? The benefactor's unique legacy was now on full display. 20 years ago, our extraordinary donor was once a patient in this hospital, fighting a battle no child should have to face, Victor recounted, his gaze sweeping across the crowd. Today, she continues that fight on behalf of others. With that, he gestured toward the back of the room. "Miss Porter, would you please join me on stage?" A flurry of confused whispers erupted as Olivia slowly made her way toward the stage. Her simple beige dress, which had once seemed out of place among the designer gowns, now parted the sea of extravagance like a beacon of authenticity. The crowd watched in stunned silence as she ascended the steps with dignified grace. Victor Langford's voice rang out. "It is my honor to introduce Miss Olivia Porter, founder of the Porter Foundation for Children's Medical Research and our lead benefactor for the new oncology wing." The impact of his announcement was immediate. Vivian's champagne glass nearly slipped from her grasp, while Felicia's expression morphed into one of shock. Lillian clutched her pearls as though seeking reassurance from their solidity. Ms. Porter's foundation has funded groundbreaking pediatric cancer research across the country, Victor continued, and her personal contribution of $25 million is the largest single donation in our hospital's history. The words reverberated around the grand hall. Stepping up to the microphone, Olivia's voice was soft yet unwavering. "When I was 12, I spent 9 long months in this hospital battling leukemia. The doctors and nurses here not only saved my life, they taught me what true compassion means. Tonight, I feel fortunate enough to be in a position to give back." A palpable silence fell over the room as each attendee absorbed the sincerity in her tone. For a moment, the rigid social hierarchy that had defined the evening was forgotten. Even as the socialites attempted to reassert their status, they found themselves captivated by the depth behind Olivia's unassuming exterior. "Chloe's Butterfly Sanctuary will be a place of healing and hope," she explained, her eyes bright with purpose. "Sometimes, the smallest beings, whether butterflies or children, can teach us the most profound lessons about transformation and resilience." As Olivia stepped away from the microphone, the ballroom erupted in heartfelt applause. Victor Langford invited the donors to view the architectural plans for the new wing, and the crowd surged forward. Now, the focus shifted from designer labels to a transformative vision that would touch the lives of countless children. A shift in perspectives. While the excited donors and board members swarmed the display, Vivian and her group found themselves momentarily frozen in place. Their carefully constructed facade was beginning to crumble as they realized the profound truth behind Olivia's message. Just moments before, The very woman they had dismissed and ridiculed for her plain attire had revealed herself not only as incredibly wealthy, but as a living legend in philanthropic circles. In that instant, it became clear that her wealth far surpassed the combined fortunes of the families they so proudly represented. Vivian, with her phone trembling in her hand, began typing furiously as she scrolled through the results. "What exactly is this?" she muttered under her breath. The screen revealed that Olivia Porter was the heiress to a colossal technology fortune. Her parents, Robert and Margaret Porter, were celebrated tech pioneers whose revolutionary contributions to medical imaging had forever altered the landscape of healthcare. Tragically, they had perished in a plane crash 10 years prior, leaving Olivia with an inheritance that dwarfed anything her social circle could ever imagine. "How much is it all worth?" Felicia pressed softly, her eyes locked on Vivian's screen as if searching for validation of their previous assumptions. Vivian's eyes widened as the figures populated her screen. "It's astronomical," she whispered, her voice barely audible over the murmurs of the crowd. The realization struck her like a bolt of lightning. The woman they had dismissed as merely plain was, in reality, the embodiment of unimaginable wealth and generosity. Olivia now stood at the center of the room, not because of an ostentatious display of wealth, but because of the values she upheld. Her simple beige dress had transformed into a powerful symbol, a statement that true worth is measured not by outward appearances, but by the depth of one's character and the willingness to help others. Dr. Miller approached her side, his kind eyes crinkling at the corners in a warm smile. "I wanted to see your reaction when they realized the truth," he murmured. "It's as if your contribution, and your very presence, has challenged our long-held assumptions." Olivia's lips curved into a gentle smile. "I never did this for the reveal," she admitted softly. "But sometimes making a point is necessary. $25 million speaks volumes, doesn't it?" A light chuckle rippled through the gathering, as even the most cynical among them couldn't help but be moved by her candid honesty. Yet, beneath the laughter, there lingered an unspoken truth, that the richest contributions are those of character and compassion. As the evening progressed, Olivia found herself drawn away from the spectacle of glittering donor names and extravagant displays of wealth. She wandered toward a quieter corner of the ballroom, where architectural renderings of the new children's wing were displayed in meticulous detail. The plans depicted a facility designed not just for modern medicine, but as a sanctuary for hope and healing. "It's beautiful," came a soft voice from behind her. Turning, Olivia saw Vivian, whose earlier condescension had given way to a hesitant warmth. "Why didn't you speak up earlier when you were in the ward? Would have mattered?" Vivian asked, her voice tinged with vulnerability. Olivia paused, her expression contemplative. "I don't believe it matters," she replied. "We often see people through the lens of what we expect, measured by our own superficial standards. I'm here because I believe that every child deserves to be seen for who they truly are, not merely for what they have or wear." Vivian's carefully applied makeup faltered, unable to fully conceal the flush creeping up her neck. "I behaved so poorly," she confessed. "I judged you solely by your dress and assumed you had nothing of substance. That was my error." Olivia's response was gentle yet firm. "Our worth isn't defined by our bank accounts or our family names, Vivian. It's defined by our actions and our willingness to care for others. Sometimes, the most profound lessons come from the most unexpected sources." Their conversation deepened as they discussed the true meaning of generosity and the responsibility that came with wealth. Vivian found herself questioning the shallow standards she had long clung to, standards that had dictated her every social interaction and decision. In the ensuing dialogue, a transformation began to take shape, one where genuine empathy slowly began to override the rigid, unyielding structures of high society. An evening of transformation. After their heart-to-heart, Olivia made her way back to the main hall. The official unveiling of the donor wall was imminent. Victor Langford's voice boomed as he recalled the contributions that would soon make the new pediatric wing a reality. "Ladies and gentlemen," he declared, "it is with profound gratitude that we recognize those whose generosity will transform the lives of children in our community. These contributions are not merely financial. They're investments in our future." As the curtain covering the velvet donor wall was pulled away, gasps echoed throughout the room. Instead of an ostentatious display of wealth, the wall bore a simple inscription honoring the new wing. At the very top was Olivia Porter's name, accompanied, however, by a unique declaration. "Miss Porter has requested that her contribution remain anonymous on our permanent installation," Victor announced, his voice thick with emotion. "She believes that the true focus should be on the children we serve, not on the donor." This revelation struck a resounding chord with many. It was perhaps the most powerful statement she could have made, a rejection of the very hierarchy that had once dictated the rules of engagement for Boston's elite. Vivian, Felicia, and Lillian now stood in stunned silence, the magnitude of Olivia's gesture sinking in. Their earlier mockery and condescension replayed in their minds with a clarity that was both humbling and painful. In that moment, it was undeniable. The metrics by which they had measured worth were profoundly flawed. As the evening's program continued, Olivia found herself surrounded by board members and donors who now sought her insights. Amid the clamor of renewed attention, she excused herself for a brief moment to reflect on the events of the night. Outside the ballroom, the cool Boston air seemed to mirror the clarity of her purpose. A few minutes later, she returned to a scene that was both chaotic and filled with promise. Donors and board members now approached her, their attitudes transformed by the revelation of her true identity and the sheer scale of her contribution. Each conversation carried a note of genuine curiosity, a desire to understand the woman who had so powerfully redefined what it meant to give. Dr. Miller's gentle words lingered in her ears as she walked through the gallery of plans. "Your questions this morning were remarkably insightful," he had said. "It's clear you care not just about the building, but about the children who will call a home." The architectural renderings were more than just blueprints. They were a testament to a future where healing transcended technology and where every child, regardless of circumstance, could experience a nurturing environment. In the center of the display was a large, detailed illustration of the garden that would accompany the new pediatric wing, a garden designed to be as accessible as it was beautiful, with winding paths that accommodated wheelchairs and specially chosen bursts of color to attract butterflies. "Every detail has been carefully considered," Olivia remarked to a curious onlooker. "It's not about grand gestures or ostentatious displays. It's about creating a space where hope can flourish." Her words resonated deeply with many in the room, especially those who had spent years focusing on wealth and status rather than substance and care. A new chapter begins. As the night drew to a close, the charity gala had irrevocably shifted the focus from appearances to true contributions. Vivian, Felicia, and Lillian now found themselves in a state of introspection, their earlier condescension replaced by a dawning awareness of their own shortcomings. Later that evening, as the gala guests dispersed into the crisp night air, Olivia paused at the threshold of the Hawthorne Ballroom. Outside, the city lights of Boston shone with a gentle radiance, a quiet reminder that sometimes the most transformative moments occur far from the spotlight. For Olivia, the evening was not just about a multi-million-dollar donation. It was about igniting a spark of change. Her contribution had been made with the sole purpose of creating lasting, meaningful impact, a gesture that would ripple through the lives of countless children and families. In the days that followed, as Boston buzzed with the news of the extraordinary benefactor and the groundbreaking donation, conversations shifted. The story of the plain woman in a beige dress who had single-handedly redefined the meaning of generosity became a symbol of hope, a reminder that true value lies not in wealth or appearances, but in the willingness to help others. Vivian, once a staunch advocate of superficial measures of worth, found herself questioning every long-held belief. In quiet moments of reflection, she began reaching out to the very people she had once dismissed, seeking to understand their struggles and aspirations. Her transformation was gradual, yet sincere. Felicia and Lillian, too, started to see beyond the glittering facades of high society, realizing that true impact was measured by compassion and action, rather than by bank accounts or designer labels. Weeks later, during a follow-up luncheon for the hospital's annual fundraiser, Olivia was invited once again to share her vision. The event was smaller, more intimate, a deliberate contrast to the gaudy extravagance of the gala. The setting was a sunlit conservatory filled with fresh flowers and soft instrumental music. In that serene atmosphere, Olivia spoke candidly about her journey, her experiences as a patient, and the moment that had driven her to establish the Porter Foundation. "I was once a child fighting for my life in this very hospital," she began, her voice resonating with both warmth and resolve. "I learned that healing isn't solely about the treatments we receive. It's about the kindness and compassion that surround us. The Porter Foundation exists to ensure that every child receives that same level of care, regardless of their background or circumstances." Her words stirred something profound in the hearts of everyone present. The conversation soon turned from financial contributions and donor recognition to a broader discussion about community, empathy, and the true essence of giving. Even Vivian, who had once viewed Olivia as an outsider, found herself moved by the depth of her sincerity. The facade that had once shielded her from criticism began to crumble, revealing a vulnerability that few had ever seen. As the luncheon drew to a close, the attendees mingled with a newfound sense of purpose. Many approached Olivia with questions about her foundation, eager to learn how they, too, could contribute to creating a better future for the children of Boston. The transformation was not instantaneous, but it was unmistakable, a shift in perspective that would ripple outward, changing lives one thoughtful gesture at a time. A legacy of transformation. 6 months later, on a bright, hopeful morning, sunshine poured through the windows of the newly completed pediatric wing. It was the day of the dedication ceremony for Chloe's Butterfly Sanctuary, a name that had become synonymous with hope and renewal. Olivia, ever the quiet force behind the transformation, guided a wheelchair-bound young girl named Chloe toward a monarch butterfly that rested delicately on a purple coneflower. "Look how the wings open and close," Olivia pointed out softly. "They're drying in the sun, gathering strength for flight." The child's delicate fingers reached out, not quite touching the butterfly, but mimicking its gentle dance. "Just like me, I'm gaining strength too," Chloe whispered, her voice filled with wonder and determination. Olivia squeezed the little girl's shoulder gently. "Exactly," she replied. "Every moment, every challenge helps us grow. Just like that butterfly, you're transforming into something even more beautiful." The garden outside the hospital wing had far exceeded even Olivia's ambitious vision. Designed as a sanctuary where nature and healing met, it featured winding pathways, carefully selected bursts of color, and accessible design elements that ensured every child, regardless of mobility, could experience its wonder. Every detail was a testament to the belief that healing transcends medicine, and that hope can be found even in the most unassuming places. Inside the main atrium of the wing, hospital staff, patients, and their families mingled with media representatives and major donors. The atmosphere was electric yet tender, a celebration of life, hope, and the promise of a brighter future. Among the attendees, Dr. Edward Miller could be seen chatting warmly with board members near the podium, while Vivian Sterling, whose transformation over the past months had been nothing short of remarkable, stood in quiet reflection. At one point, Vivian's eyes met Olivia's from across the crowded atrium. For a brief moment, the competitive veneer of high society fell away, replaced by a shared understanding, a silent acknowledgement that true worth was measured not by the price of a gown, but by the impact one could have on the lives of others. Later, as the children's choir assembled for their final performance of the day, a heartwarming chorus of hope and renewal, Vivian and Olivia found themselves standing side by side near the entrance of the newly dedicated sanctuary. Vivian's voice, uncharacteristically soft and unguarded, broke the silence. "Olivia," she began, her tone laden with sincere regret, "I owe you an apology. Not just for tonight, but for every time I judge someone solely by their appearance. You've shown me that our worth is measured by what we give, not what we have." Olivia smiled gently and squeezed Vivian's hand in acknowledgement. "We are all works in progress, Vivian," she replied. "Sometimes the smallest gestures, like the flutter of a butterfly's wings, can inspire the most profound transformations." The dedication ceremony continued with dignified simplicity. Speeches remained brief and heartfelt, focused on the children whose lives would be forever changed by the new wing. When the ribbon was finally cut by Chloe and 3 other brave young patients, the room was filled with raw emotion. There wasn't a dry eye in the atrium. The moment had transcended the material, celebrating the triumph of spirit over circumstance. As guests toured the new facility, many lingered near the architectural renderings and garden displays. The story of the plain woman in a beige dress had become legendary, a powerful reminder that true generosity and compassion have the power to transform not only individual lives, but entire communities. Reflections and renewed purpose. In the weeks and months that followed the gala and the dedication ceremony, Boston's elite began to reassess their priorities. Invitations to exclusive events were now met with introspection rather than the smug confidence of old. Vivian Sterling, in particular, underwent a profound personal transformation. No longer content with simply attending glamorous galas, she resigned from several high society committees and dedicated her time to patient support programs at the hospital. She immersed herself in direct service, working alongside families navigating the terrifying landscape of childhood illness and learning firsthand the true value of empathy. One afternoon, while organizing a community fundraiser, Vivian confided in Olivia. "I used to believe that wealth and status defined our worth," she admitted quietly. "I judge people by their clothing, their connections. But your example has taught me that character, kindness, and compassion are the only measures that truly matter." Olivia's eyes shone with understanding as she replied, "Every person has a unique story, Vivian. It's not our possessions that define us, but the differences we make in the lives of others." I established the Porter Foundation to ensure that every child, no matter their background, receives the care they need to thrive. That's the legacy I want to leave behind. Their conversation continued long into the afternoon, exploring ways to bridge the gap between high society and the everyday struggles of those in need. The lessons learned that evening echoed throughout their lives, inspiring initiatives that reached far beyond the walls of Boston Children's Hospital. As summer turned to fall, the transformation sparked by Olivia's donation began to manifest in tangible ways. The new pediatric oncology wing, now a state-of-the-art facility, became a beacon of hope for families across the city. Its garden, a living, breathing sanctuary, served as a constant reminder that beauty could be found in simplicity and that healing was a journey of both body and spirit. Over time, news of Olivia's generosity and the ensuing changes in Boston's social landscape spread far and wide. Media outlets chronicled the dramatic reversal of fortunes, and the story of the plain woman in a modest dress became a rallying cry for those who believed that true wealth was measured in compassion rather than currency. The enduring impact. Years later, as Boston continued to grow and evolve, the legacy of that transformative evening endured. The Porter Foundation, under Olivia's steadfast guidance, expanded its reach, funding innovative research and community programs that improved pediatric care across the country. The new wing, affectionately known as Chloe's Butterfly Sanctuary, became not only a place of healing, but also a symbol of how one person's determination to make a difference could challenge and ultimately change even the most entrenched social hierarchies. Vivian Sterling, now a dedicated advocate for patient support and community outreach, often recalled that pivotal moment with a mixture of regret and gratitude. In quiet moments of reflection, she would remember the simple truth that Olivia had imparted. Our true worth lies in what we give, not in what we wear or the wealth we possess. At community events and charity functions, whenever the topic of true philanthropy arose, Olivia's name was mentioned with reverence. Her story became a case study in the power of humility and genuine care, a narrative that urged others to look beyond the surface and measure worth by actions rather than appearances. As the years rolled by, even those who once scoffed at the idea of mixing charity with personal humility began to embrace the notion that wealth could be a force for good. Initiatives sprouted up in various sectors, inspired by the philosophy that helped transform Boston Children's Hospital. The city itself took pride in this new era of benevolence, where each donation was celebrated not for its monetary value, but for the lives it improved. In the end, the story of that extraordinary evening, a night when a plain beige dress and an unassuming woman redefined what it meant to be truly wealthy, remained etched in the collective memory of the community. It was a story that taught everyone who heard it that appearances can be deceiving, and that sometimes the most profound transformations begin with a single act of kindness. Epilogue: a lasting change. On a crisp winter day, several years later, during a quiet afternoon at the hospital's newly renovated lounge, Vivian Sterling found herself revisiting the memories of that fateful night. Sitting in a comfortable armchair by a large window, she reflected on the journey that had taken her from the opulent but shallow world of Boston's elite to a deeper understanding of what it truly means to be of value. Across the room, a display showcased the evolution of the hospital's donor wall, a living record of generosity and transformation. There, alongside the names of corporate benefactors and high-profile figures, was the simple, unadorned inscription honoring Olivia Porter's $25 million contribution, with a note that read, "In honor of the children we serve." As she watched children laugh and play in the hospital garden, a vibrant oasis filled with carefully tended flowers, gently winding paths, and flurries of butterflies, Vivian felt a deep sense of gratitude. For the first time in many years, she saw the beauty in the everyday struggles of those around her. The hospital wasn't just a building or a collection of donations. It was a sanctuary of hope built on the foundations of compassion and care. With a thoughtful sigh, Vivian whispered to herself, "Our true worth is not in what we possess, but in the lives we touch." That simple truth had redefined her, and she vowed to carry it forward in every action she took. And so, the legacy of that transformative night lived on, an enduring reminder that even in a world obsessed with appearances, the most powerful change begins with a shift in perspective. A change that celebrates substance over spectacle, empathy over elitism, and the unyielding belief that every person has the capacity to make a meaningful difference. For those who had once judged solely by outward appearances, the lesson was clear. It is our character, our kindness, and our willingness to help that truly define who we are. And in the soft glow of a Boston evening, beneath the watchful gaze of crystal chandeliers, that lesson shone brighter than any designer gown ever could.